All right, so thank you for tuning in and jumping at the bit. I'm Kyle Edwards, of course. Now, I want to talk about my Red Sox on this episode. Well, first off, how are you doing? Hope you're having a great day. If you're new here, appreciate you stopping by. Now, this is a show where I give my honest opinion on stuff going on in the sports world that are important to me. Just a quick little reminder there. But I want to talk about the Red Sox on this episode because they just had the All-Star break, which is the unofficial end to the first half. And they had their first game of the second half last night against the Blue Jays, which did not go well. But with the trade deadline coming up in, I think it's like 10 days now at this point, what should Red Sox fans be thinking about this team as it's currently constituted? You know, should they be buyers? Should they be sellers? And that's something I think has gone back and forth throughout this season because it has been such an up and down season with this Red Sox team. So what can we read into? What about this team should we not overreact to? And I guess other thoughts like that I want to give you on this episode. So with that, like I said, hopefully you enjoy this one. And, you know what to do at the end of it. Hit the like button, subscribe as well, and notification if you're on YouTube or whatever to know when I drop new episodes. So with that, might as well just go ahead, get in to it with this interesting team, shall we? All right, so here's the thing with this Red Sox team. It was, an off season with a lot of questions coming in. Now, have all the questions been answered? No, not at all. We've also had a change at the top where we have Chaim Bloom, who's, came over from the Tampa Bay system. He's now running the show with the Red Sox. Now, this will be his first trade deadline, so we'll probably get to see maybe what his vision is for this team going forward. But, we have that. We've had some injuries with the team on the pitching staff. Chris Sale, Nathan Eovaldi, Paxton, who they brought in the offseason, hasn't set foot on the mound yet. Just to name a few, you've had some injuries with, Story had the hand. Devers had a back issue. Kike Hernandez has been out. So, been injuries. But with that, the team got off to a very slow start where, they were below 500 for much of the first, 2 months. Because they always say, the first important checkpoint for the baseball season is Memorial Day. And Memorial Day, the Red Sox were, I think it's the last Monday in May. They were 4 games below 500. So at that point, it looked like another lost season. Do you deal off JD Martinez? We already know about the discussions with Devers and Bogarts. They went and signed Trevor Story in the offseason. So was that their way of kind of putting one foot out the door on Bogarts? And with the slow start, would that, push the agenda for them to trade him? Devers, we know that he is coming up on a new deal. Looks like in 2 years, but you don't want to wait too long because he's improving each year. He's already established offensively. We know he's got great power. He can hit all parts of the field. But defensively, you see the improvement there. And if he continues to improve defensively, his value just goes up even more. So you would think the Red Sox would want to get him signed now, where hopefully they could save a little bit. Where if they wait too long, then the price could get to a point where maybe he prices himself out of town. Now, That shouldn't be an issue because the Red Sox clearly are one of the haves in baseball and they have money to spend. But then you have to look on from the team perspective. They don't just want to write blank checks to everybody, spend crazy amounts into the tax without results. Now, for me, I'm one who thinks Devers should be re-signed because he's clearly one of the best hitters in baseball. And yes, defense was an issue for him early on in his career, but you see the improvements. He makes more plays now than he did. He doesn't have as many throwing errors now as he did before. So whoever's been working with him, it seems like he's learning the nuances of third base. But also, I think some people project him not as a third baseman throughout his whole career. So now you have to think about, I guess, moving him maybe to first base later on in his career, or maybe this is where JD plays into it. Probably not, because I don't think it's something that would happen now, but do you see Devers as a future DH? And if that's the case, now with the DH being universal, that brings in more teams that would be involved in, I guess, negotiations for him. You have, like I said, questions on the pitching staff, but like I said, Memorial Day, they're below 500. Looked like obvious sellers lost season. Then they turn it around, and then by July 4th, they're 10 games over 500. So now you're thinking about, are they as good as the stretch run, as the run from Memorial Day to July 4th, where they played great baseball, maybe not against the best opposition? Or would they regress more towards how they were in the beginning of the season, where they're basically hovering around 500? So, went from feeling low about the team early on to now you're feeling great about them July 4th. But then they limp in to the All-Star break going 3-10 in their last 13 games. And then the alarming aspect of that was they played the Rays and the Yankees in that stretch solely. They played AL East teams and it didn't go well. So over the course of the year, they haven't fared that well against their own division, which is why they are, fourth in division now, with Baltimore coming up behind them, which, give it up to Baltimore for turning their season around as well. So, going to the All-Star break, come out of the All-Star break last night against Toronto, and, it was an opportunity for them to get the second half started off right, maybe get back to their better baseball, to where, Bogarts came out and said he wants the team to be buyers at the deadline. Well, if you start off, especially against Toronto, do well there, then the fans could probably get behind them being buyers. But now, they lost last night 28-5. That's not a joke or anything. They legit gave up 28 runs to Toronto. Now, we know Toronto has talented offensive weapons, of course. But to give up 28 runs at home to Toronto, how are you supposed to feel about that? And with all those runs that were scored, the one play that's going to stick out in Red Sox fans' mind, baseball fans' minds, is an inside the park grand slam. Once again, that's not a joke. I don't know the last time that I've seen an inside the park grand slam, but you have to think in order for that to happen, a couple things need to be in place. Usually 2 outs, because with 2 outs at the crack of the bat, everybody's just running. Okay. 2, it had to be hit either. There had to be some kind of miscue in the outfield at some point That's 2-3, most likely towards the triangle because that's like the deepest part of the outfield. But on this play, there were 2 outs, I believe. And it was a lazy fly ball to Jarren Duran in center, but he lost it in the lights, which can happen at night. You know, the lights over the stadium shining bright. And he actually came in on the ball, and the ball landed out on the warning track. And I think it was a Tapia who hit it for the Blue Jays, who has great speed. So that's what led to the perfect storm of an inside the park grand slam. So with this team kind of teetering on playoff contention versus missing the playoffs, a play like that can be a big blow to a team's morale and all that. Plus pile that on to 28 runs given up. So we'll have to see with the next 2 games against Toronto, how that goes. Now, after that, you have a series against Cleveland, which is the team right behind them in terms of the wild card chase. Then they have Milwaukee, and I believe the series against Houston. And then at that point, you're up to the trade deadline. Now, let's just say they get swept by Toronto. Then Cleveland comes in. Cleveland wins that series. Milwaukee, whatever. And then they lose the Houston series. Now they could end up being right back to where they were earlier in the season, where they were, 5, 6, 8 games below 500. Then at that point, I think Chaim Bloom's going to have to make serious decisions with this roster. Because if you look at the roster, the weaknesses are there clearly. One, the pitching staff, due to injuries and all that, the pitching staff is not where it needs to be for a contending team. That's blatantly obvious. I mean, Eovaldi pitched last night, but he's just coming back from injury. I don't know how much I should read into that because, he's still trying to get himself back to form. Sale, who spent all the time injured, finally came back. His first start, he went, 5 innings, looked good. Velocity looked there. Gave you some optimism for the second half of the season. But then his very next start against the Yankees, makes, I think he threw a fastball, but it came back, I think over 100 miles an hour, hit him in the hand, and we all know the image where his pinky was clearly broken and he's holding it up to show Cora in them. So now he's going to be out because he just had surgery on it. And that, I guess there's questions now of whether or not he'll pitch again 2022, which if he doesn't, that's another lost season from Chris Sale. Rich Hill's in the starting rotation. I mean, Rich Hill's 55, and I mean, as a 5th starter, he's actually been pretty steady, I guess. You have the Garrett Whitlock experiment as a starter, but then he got hurt, and now it looks like he's going to go back to a bullpen role, which for all intents and purposes is probably his best role. Now, he does have the stuff to be a starter, but maybe he just doesn't have the mentality for it, because he went from being a lights-out reliever to... he was pretty lights out to start the season, but as the season went on, his struggles started mounting up, ultimately leading to him being on the injured list. So if he goes back into the bullpen, yes, that helps your bullpen out, but now that's a place that was in the starting rotation now out. So now you have guys like Cutter Crawford making starts, and I mean, Crawford's been decent, I will say. So maybe Crawford is an answer for the rotation, possibly, but he's not a top of the rotation type of arm. And I think that's what the Red Sox lack more than anything, because your top 2 arms are Eovaldi and Sale, but they have injury issues, especially Sale. How much can you rely on that? So can Chaim Bloom somehow find an ace out there? I don't know. We know that they have Brian Bayo down in the minors, who's projected to be top of the rotation arm. And he's made a couple of spot starts this season. But, he's down the line. That's the first thing. Got to get a starting pitcher. Maybe even two. Bullpen, they could even use bullpen arms, because right now in the bullpen, you feel confident in Whitlock. You feel confident in Houck. Like I said, Houck has made the transition to bullpen seamlessly. And I wonder, with the Whitlock experiment not working, is Houck now a bullpen guy? Because I think in this kind of era of baseball, having bullpen arms that you can use in the 5th inning, the 6th, the 7th. I mean, Houck, you can have him close out games some nights. That type of versatility is kind of valuable right now. Whereas, Houck being a starting pitcher, you get him every 5th day for like 5-6 innings, and then that's it. As a reliever, you can use him multiple times in a week. But outside of that, you have some good arms, but not great arms in the bullpen. So I think Bloom needs to find a bullpen arm. Maybe if you use Houck or Whitlock as your closer, the other one could be the setup guy, but they would still need arms to get to those guys. So that's an issue. So you need starting pitching, you need bullpen relievers. Then, in terms of out in the field of play, the Red Sox are set third base, Devers. Bogarts is short, you feel good with. Story at second, he's had a tough year at the plate. He's hit home runs, he's driven in runs, but the batting average, you'd like to see that a little bit higher. But it's also his first year out of Colorado, so there had to be some adjustment. So I'm not going to panic over that. Behind the plate, Vasquez is Vasquez. I like Vasquez, so no worries there. The outfield, on the other hand, I guess before I get to the outfield, first base, they could definitely use a first baseman that's a power bat, because you're playing Dahlbeck there, you're playing Cordero. Cordero's been actually surprising to me, because he's had stretches of having a hot bat. He doesn't necessarily give you a power bat, but he gives you speed. For a big guy, it's very surprising. And I think Cordero could be a bench bat that you can put first. He can play corner outfielder, and you feel fine with. It's just that you don't want Cordero starting 120 games a season. Same with Dahlbeck. I still think that Dahlbeck can maybe develop into that. It's just that right now he's kind of boom or bust, where you're going to get a lot of strikeouts with him, but he does have decent power. So I think he just needs a little bit more, seasoning in terms of maybe he's not seeing pitches well from certain, I don't know. But I think Dahlbeck is a ball player. But although, with all the needs that this team has, maybe a young guy like Dahlbeck can get you a young pitcher or something. But definitely, first baseman power bat is a need for this team. Outfield, you have Jarren Duran, who's come on and played center. I like Duran. He's got great speed. He's flashed some power. So I'm good with that. Kike's been out for a while. I like Kike Hernandez, but this year he's kind of struggled at the plate. Then you have Verdugo. who Verdugo's fine. You know, a lot of expectations from him coming in that Mookie Betts trade. And I feel like Verdugo's been a good player, so I don't have any problems there. But I wouldn't mind seeing a power bat in the outfield as well. So with those needs, does Chaim Bloom try to address all of them at this trade deadline? And would you use a JD Martinez, maybe send him to a contender? Once again, with the DH being universal, you could send him to the National League, to a team that maybe needs a power bat. Try to get some young prospects back, possibly. There's been some developments with Bogaerts where I think I heard the other day that, you know, Bogaerts doesn't necessarily need the most money, but he's a Scott Boras client, and we know Scott Boras likes to get the most money for his clients. But one thing I was just thinking about before recording this was, if you remember the story with Freddie Freeman, where he got big money to go to the Dodgers, then he gets out there, he fires his agent. It basically makes it seem like he wanted to stay in Atlanta, but because, you know, chasing money, went to the Dodgers, may not be happy. So is it something where Bogaerts actually wants to stay in Boston because he's been there so long? You know, he probably loves the city, loves the fans, and that's where he feels like home is. But Boras may want to push him somewhere else to get more money. But does he want to risk going somewhere and having remorse for leaving? So if that's something where, if that's true, maybe that works to the Red Sox favor, and they can, you know, offer him market-worthy contract that may not be the best contract, but enough to make Bogaerts feel welcome back in Boston. That's the case, then the whole Bogaerts story thing, I guess Story stays your second baseman until, I guess, Bogaerts maybe his defense erodes to the point where you swap them. I don't know. But that'd be a good problem to have for Cora. Well, I don't think Cora's job is in jeopardy or anything over this season, because he's shown in the past that he's a winner. So I wouldn't completely, you know, dump him over one bad year as it looks right now, as they are slowly sliding to, you know, back to 500 and possibly even below 500 here. But yeah, so for me, it's like, you know, Chaim Bloom put a contending team in Tampa with all of their restrictions. Well, he was a part of that staff. So for me, I would think with a bigger budget in Boston, he should be able to build a winner in Boston as well. It's probably going to take some time, because if you look at the rosters, just looking at their own division, you know, the Yankees roster, you would say, is more talented. The Blue Jays roster, you would say, is more talented. Tampa, you'd probably say, is more talented. And Baltimore, I mean, the Red Sox will probably still be more talented than Baltimore, but Baltimore it seems like they finally have put it together, so they're going to be a threat maybe for the next couple of years. Now, with those teams that definitely have better rosters, what do they have better pitching rotations than the Red Sox. So I think that's the first glaring need if I had to rank the issues with the team. Starting pitching would be 1, bullpen 2. I think the first baseman power bat would probably be 3, and then power bat for the outfield I think would be the 4th need. So I mean, like I said, this season it might get rough the second half, because like I said, the schedule coming out of the break, Toronto tough, Cleveland's kind of in the same boat with the Red Sox, so that series could go either way. Or Houston, then you have the Royals, but then you have the Braves. Baltimore, Yankees. Yeah, it's a tough second half. And not saying that they'll end up last in the division, but being fourth right now might be where there's slated to be at the end of the season. Whether or not they could get one of the 3 wild cards, it's kind of irrelevant at this point because this roster is definitely not a World Series winning roster, and that's what Chaim Bloom is brought in to build. So I expect some changes, whether it's this trade deadline or definitely in the offseason, because I would think in the offseason we would get probably some resolution on Bogarts, of course. Hopefully it would be before that, but we might even get some resolution on Devers, because I'm sure they're going to want to negotiate with him in the offseason to try to get him, like I said, signed earlier than in a couple of years when the price might go sky high. But would love to see Chris Sale come back, pitch a little bit this year, and then fingers crossed start next season healthy, top of the rotation, and get some type of evaluation of him. Because since he signed the extension, he's missed a lot of games with injury, so he's going to need to put together a somewhat healthy season to kind of get back in the good graces of the fans. But yeah, it's baseball. Anything can happen. For all we know, they could go on another run like they did between Memorial Day and 4th of July and end up, right back in the, probably not the division race, because Yankees are up 16, 17 games on them. So kind of think that's out of the question at this point. But, would I be surprised if they went on some hot run and ended up as the number 1 wildcard team? No. Same way, I wouldn't be surprised if they missed the playoffs at this point. And yeah, it'd be a bummer, of course, coming off the Celtics losing in the finals, turn your attention to the Red Sox, and now the Red Sox going through a tough season. Now, luckily, football's almost here, and then the attention that goes on to the Patriots. But it's going to be interesting, week and a half here in terms of what the Red Sox do. And I will definitely be paying attention. So if the Red Sox make any big deals, we'll come in here and talk about it. But I do think it's fascinating the decisions that Chaim Bloom's going to have to make right now, and how any inactivity during the trade deadline or activity will be received by fans. But like I said, for me, I'm in the boat that clearly changes need to be made, and I already named them: starting pitching, relievers, first baseman, bat, and corner outfield. Because like I said, I'm fine with Duran or Kike in center. Verdugo plays left, I'm kind of fine with that. So I guess right field, if you want to look at it, because right now they kind of play like Jackie Bradley Jr. out there. They'll play Cordero out there sometimes, and yeah, that's clear. That's a hole in the lineup right now. But let me know what you think, fellow Red Sox fans, or I guess other fans of baseball. Are you like me, thinking that the roster doesn't need like a complete overhaul, but there are clearly needs on this team that need to be addressed before we can really start thinking about another World Series run? And do you have faith in Chaim Bloom being a guy to get it done? Let me know, down in the comment section, all that. But thanks again for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you did, you know what to do: like and subscribe. And also, share with people try to help me out, build a fan base. But let me see. But yeah, so remember, this week I'm going to do another top 5 episode like I said, I'm going to try to do one every week. And I'm looking at a couple of categories for this week's top 5. But once again, as I said last week, if you do have suggestions for top 5s that you want me to do, please drop them in the comments. If you go over to Twitter, follow me at Chompin' Podcast, and you can, message me over there your suggestions, and then I'll choose from that. But yeah, so stay tuned to that. At some point this weekend, I'll record that. And also, let me know what you thought about last week's top 5, where I did top 5 rivalries in sports. Let me know what you think about that one. But thanks again. Appreciate it. Love doing this, and we'll continue to do this. But having a lot of fun with it. Hopefully you're enjoying it as well. Give me any feedback that you have for the show, because I want to make it as pleasing for you guys as possible. So definitely do that. But as I always say, have a great one out there. Have a great day. Be safe. God bless. And I'll catch you on the next episode. All right. I'm out. Enjoy yourself.